We turn our attention to Matthew chapter 26 and verse 6 to 13. I just want to let you know that I'm blown away by what happens in this passage. I'm amazed by what's taking place in the passage. The first thing I'm amazed by is the boldness of the woman. The boldness of this woman. Notice the verse. While Jesus was in Bethany in the home of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on the head as he was reclining at the table. She's unannounced and uninvited, as far as we know. Not that she's a stranger. She's been a part of this meal. But she gets up and she takes this perfume that we would recognize later on in the passage and from other passages would cost her about a year to pay for. Think about that. 30,000, 60,000, whatever standard you go by, think about a year's wage, a denarius a day. She brings this, and it's this perfume. This represents her future. This represents her security. How did she get it? Did she save up for it? Was it a dowry? Was it something that was inherited? We don't know, but it was very costly. This perfume is in a container, an alabaster jar. Don't think glass, think thin stone. And don't think corked and capped that could be screwed on. Think a vessel that's broken. The contents not to be retrieved ever again. And she's going to pour this perfume on Jesus. Think about that. You ever walk into a Yankee Candle store? All these aromas, people sniffing candles everywhere, their noses in every jar. Did you ever come into the house when your grandma or your wife or maybe your husband baking banana bread? It fills the whole space. You can't help it. Take in the aroma. That's what I envision what's happening here. When she breaks this jar, this vessel, and pours the complete contents over Jesus, the aroma is filling the whole space. But what was it in her mind, though? What was in her heart when she did this? I believe there are two things. First of all, gratitude. Because in the John passage, which the story is recorded for us in John chapter 12, she's given a name, Mary of Bethany, and that's where they are. But here they're in the home of a man named Simon the leper, which we could refer to as Simon the ex-leper. This is somebody that Jesus healed. Jesus changed his life, restored his life when he healed him. And Simon the leper hosts in Bethany, just a stone's throw away from Jerusalem, because remember, Jesus is coming and going from Jerusalem to Bethany on his last week on this earth. But it wasn't just a short time ago, chapter 11 of John, where Jesus does what in Bethany? Raises a dead man. His name is Lazarus. His sisters' names? Mary and Martha. Martha is moved by gratitude when she does this, but she's also moved by grief. Because in just a couple days, she knows where Jesus is going and headed. She's moved by gratitude for what he has done, and she's moved by grief for what he is about to do. And all of these things in her mind, she's very present in this moment. And rightly so, because all of these things have happened in a very compact period of time. So keep this in mind. What I find fascinating here in Matthew's presentation of the gospel and the story of Jesus is that Jesus is worshipped at the beginning of his life by the Magi with expensive perfumes. Matthew's the only one who records the visit of the Magi. They bring gold, frankincense, and what? Myrrh. At the end of his life, he is worshipped by costly perfume. Not by the Magi, but by Mary. Isn't that beautiful? Can you also imagine that in a matter of days, because as we looked last week, and Deb referenced that God is still on the throne, that was last week. Christ in complete control. Please listen to that sermon. Please go back and get it on the website. Verses 1 to 5. I cannot tell you how meaningful it has been for me, even this week, not knowing what would unfold this week. And Jesus says it's the Passover is 2 days away. The Son of Man is going to be betrayed, delivered over, handed over. It's going to be an inside job. And he is not going to die. He's going to be crucified. It's the second time, it's the second reference to crucifixion. The first one in chapter 20. He had said earlier on he's going to die. Here, he's going to be crucified. We're talking about days away. Rome has no beef with Jesus. But Jesus says he's going to be handed over to Rome. Well, how do we know it? Because crucifixion is a Roman execution, not Jewish. And in the matter of 2 days, Jesus had to be guilty of a capital offense. They couldn't care less about blasphemy, but they could about political sedition. And if somehow the narrative can shift between Jesus makes himself God to Jesus is a rival king, now we've got a problem. Now we've got justification. And all of these things begin to unravel. And Jesus ends up on the cross. Just a brief period of time before that time, a woman comes and anoints him with this perfume. Could you imagine with me that when Jesus is stripped of all of his clothes and all of his dignity, while hanging on that cross for you and for me, that the aroma of this woman's devotion would be a sweet smell in his nostril, while he is seeing all around him betrayal, and death. I'm amazed by the boldness of this woman. I'm amazed by the blindness of these men, these disciples. And in the next verses it says, when the disciples saw this, they were indignant. Why this waste? They asked. This perfume could have been sold at a high price, and the money given to the poor. They get on her case. They say, what? What a waste. What a waste. She hasn't done any of the calculation. They have. She hasn't counted the cost. They have. And what they calculated is that this all could have been done, this all could have been sold and given to the poor. Well, that sounds good. It's a nice front. It's a nice mask for their hypocrisy. Because John tells us the one leading the criticism is Judas. Judas had his hand in the purse. But it's not because Judas stood alone in this, because they were all put their voice to this. What a waste. Their comments revealed their cold, calloused, indifferent, and critical hearts. I'm blown away by this, and I'm amazed by the blindness of these men. What is it that she sees that they don't see? Jesus is going to inform us of the answer in a moment. But think about all that they have seen. Think about what Jesus, just in verses 1 to 5, said to them An exclusive audience. Imagine a 4-year-old little girl. Father's Day is coming up, and she has this wonderful idea. And she's going to take this idea to her mom to check it out with her. She's going to say, Mommy, here's my idea. Here's what I want to do for Daddy. I want to do something really special for Daddy. I want to save up my money. I want to find some chores to do and save up some money. And then I want to save it up, and then I'm going to write a note to Daddy on Father's Day. And I want to treat Daddy to ice cream at our favorite ice cream place. Just me and Daddy. Mommy, what do you think about that? And the mom says, oh, that's going to be a wonderful idea. He's going to love that. And so it's been weeks now. It's weeks leading up to Father's Day, and she does a chore for Grandma and Grandpa and another chore around the house, and she's saving up her quarters, and she'll get sometimes 2 quarters for a job, and she's got them all. And then Father's Day arrives. She's been able to gather up $5.50, and she puts it right there on her desk, and she takes a piece of paper, just like you would see in a notebook. In a notebook, she rips it out, and she writes a note on that paper. Daddy, I love you. Happy Father's Day. And I want to give you a special gift. I want to treat you to ice cream at our favorite ice cream store. Just me and you. She puts the coin in the middle of that piece of paper and folds those pieces up, takes some Scotch tape and secures it. Nothing fancy, but from her heart. And when Father's Day comes, she bounds into his bedroom and she says, Happy Father's Day, and presents him with the gift. He takes it from her, says, Thank you, darling, for thinking of me. He feels that it's weighty. He takes this gift, he opens it up. He sees all this money. He's wondering what this is about. He reads the note. The same note that I just read to you. Happy Father's Day, Daddy. I love you, and I want to treat you to our special place for ice cream. What does the dad say? Don't waste your money. Do you know that we could use all this money to get a tub of ice cream? We're not going to waste our money, little one, on a simple ice cream cone. You save it. Don't waste your money. Imagine how that little girl would feel. What would we say about the man? Other than the fact that, I'll get him. No. What would you say? You would say he was completely blind to what was going on in his daughter's heart. He didn't see what she was after. She wasn't calculating the cost. All she wanted to do was something special for her dad. All he could think of is, this is not making economical sense. Puts her in her right place, which is what every 4-year-old daughter wants to do when they're just trying to lavish love on the people that they love. This woman comes in and she expends the entire contents of this perfume. What did the disciples say? What a waste. They couldn't see what was in her heart. Why? Because it wasn't in their heart. And I asked myself, what is in my heart? When I have become so indifferent, so cold and calloused, from someone who's been so in love with Jesus, so enamored by what he has done. Like the psalmist says, what should I render to the Lord for all his benefits toward me? What can you possibly do to express your love and your devotion and your gratitude and appreciation and adoration to one who's done so much for you? What can you do? You can do nothing by way of recompense and repayment. Nothing. Everything fails. Everything falls short. But you could do something. Something. And this is the something that she did. I'm amazed by the blindness of the disciples. I'm amazed by my own blindness, my own indifference. Always setting out on this Christian walk, you're so aware of the fact that, God has given me and forgiven me more than I ever could imagine. I did not deserve his love. I did not deserve his kindness. I certainly was in need of his mercy, but I did not deserve his salvation. I know what he did for me, how he turned my life completely around, and from the inside out gave me a desire to say, Lord, I want to glorify you with every fiber of my being. I want to honor you and please you. Those first fresh moments, those new moment walk with the Lord. You remember those times. And then something happens. We become professionals. We become calculators. We calculate the costs. We start looking at what it's going to cost me and what I'm going to have to give up. And instead of the starting point being what he's worth, the starting point is what it's worth. And that's where they separated, the woman and the disciples. Her starting point was, what is he worth? Theirs was, what is this worth? And in saying what is this worth and demeaning the gift, they're demeaning him. He's not worth it. They didn't say it, but you're hearing it, and you bristle at hearing it. I'm amazed by the boldness of the woman. I'm amazed by the blindness of the disciples. And I'm amazed by the bestowal of honor by Jesus. And that's what he does. Notice the words. Aware of this, Jesus said to them, why are you bothering this woman? Why are you giving her trouble? Why are you giving her grief? That's the idea. She's done a beautiful thing to me. You see? A beautiful thing. They said it's a waste. Jesus says it's beautiful. Why? The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. Interesting. It sounds unfeeling though, doesn't it? And maybe you've scratched your head over it as well. But let me just imagine it this way. You're at your daughter's graduation. She's on the steps. You see her from a distance. You're in the crowd. She's ready. Her name is about to be called. But you get a call. And you look at your phone, and it's your boss. Okay, it's work. You got to make a choice. Are you going to let it go to voicemail? And watch your daughter receive her diploma? Or are you going to pick up the phone at that moment and miss a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see her graduate? When Jesus says the poor you have with you always, he's not demeaning any benevolent opportunities of giving to those in need. He's not saying that. But he's saying you will always have an opportunity to do that. You will not have an opportunity again to lavish such love and devotion upon me. You see, Mary sees what the disciples don't see, but that Jesus sees. Mary and Jesus are on the same page, and the disciples are so far apart from what Mary and Jesus see. Because Jesus is going to go on to say, when she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. She knows what's up. She knows what's ahead. Truly, I tell you, wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. Jesus never, ever said that to anyone and about anyone else. Ever. There's not a word that comes out of Mary's mouth, by the way. Mary does not express her devotion by her words, but by her deeds. It's easy for us if I were to ask you, are you known as someone who's devoted to the Lord? Let me ask you this question. Do you know anybody? Is there a man or a woman or a teen or a young person that you would say, somebody sitting here today, somebody in your life, this is This is her. This is my mom. This is my wife. This is my daughter. Lived all of her life serving Jesus, sacrificing for Jesus, giving for Jesus. You know someone like this. Are you like that? Or I should say, would you be known that way? Just this past week. How about even today? Before a praise song ever issued from your mouth, by your deeds, would you be known as someone of extravagant devotion? Your devotion is on full display. You see, like Mary, you know, you take a 2-liter soda. Hand it to somebody. As soon as they begin to crack that first little plasticky thing that holds the thing together, guess what? The contents of that shaken soda is going to beg to get out. It will not be kept in after that. You try it. Start. The person who's unsuspecting, they're not doing like this either. There's no way you're going to get that thing back on before it's just exploding in your face. That's Mary. Mary is so filled with gratitude that she has to find an expression. She has to find an out. She has to find a way for her to tell Jesus, I love you. But she didn't tell him I love you. She just showed it by what she did. You know that's where you were, if not where you are. You know that you're looking for every opportunity. Maybe that's one reason, one incentive or impetus for coming to church. It's not to come to church. It's because I can't wait to show him, to sing to him and about him, because these words find a commensurate heart. Because I don't know what else to say. But when I sing these words, they're beautiful vehicles through which I can express my love and praise and adoration and devotion to Jesus. Jesus says, wherever this message is shared, she is going to be associated with it. 2,000 years later. You know what's interesting to me as well? Their story is told also. Their response is connected with this as well. I can come and I can fill a room, if it's my aroma, let's say, I can fill a room with joy, with love, encouragement, and peace, and devotion. I can equally fill the space with grief and grievance and gripes. It's not that there's not problems in the world, but I ask myself, if I am known by the government this, the country that, the world the other, and that's the aroma, that's the fragrance that I bring around with me into every conversation and with all of my company. That's the fragrance that I bring with me. Everybody's wrong. The company's going to the country's going to hell. The government is whatever. And this is how I'm known. This is the fragrance that I'm bringing with me, and that everywhere I am, this is how people know me. I can do that. You know people who are like that. But if we can do it, if we can bring that fragrance, why don't we choose then to bring this fragrance? A fragrance of devotion to Jesus, a fragrance of indebtedness to Jesus, a fragrance of communion with Jesus, a fragrance of love for Jesus, a fragrance of the peace of Jesus, love and joy and peace and all of the other balance of the fruit of the Spirit. If we can do the former, we could choose there as well to do the latter, to be the latter. And you have in this juxtaposition now the choice we have to make. Which one to you is more appealing? Which one to you stands out as receiving the commendation, not the criticism of Jesus? It's Mary. Look what she had done. And by Mary's example, we can just have a test of what true devotion is. She didn't calculate the cost. She didn't pay attention to the criticism. She didn't follow the crowd. She took the initiative. She didn't wait. And she didn't do it for the commendation or the pats on the back. And she didn't stick to convention. She didn't stick to convention. Nobody else did anything like this. Jesus never told her to do this. He never invited her to do this. He never even prompted her to do this. He never said, it's time to collect the offering, and does anybody have anything you want to give? Nothing like that. She comes spontaneously, willingly. You're not called to do the same. The disciples weren't called to do the same. But she didn't keep with convention. Here's a woman in the midst of a room full of men. She didn't care because she was doing it for an audience of one. She was doing it for an audience of one. It didn't matter who was around or if no one was around. All she saw was him. All she saw was him. All she cared about was his approval. That's all she cared about. And because she was so focused on his approval, the criticisms meant nothing to her. Nothing. So what is it God calls you to do? It's going to be different than Mary's. But is there anything you could give or give up as an expression of extravagant devotion? Anything? Anything? When was the last time you did anything for Christ that cost you? Anything? When was the last time you did anything for Christ that invited the criticism of the crowd? Because we wonder, if it doesn't draw any criticism, is it really truly worship? It's just something to think about. You playing it safe? Why? Because of fear of what people might say or do or think? Everybody's going to be different. Go down to the stadium in the middle of January. You're going to see a guy who's only dressed in his boxers and he's painted his body the colors of his team. And it's 10 degrees below zero. Is he devoted to his team? Well, you might say. Does everybody have to do that? No, of course not. Can a dad who took his kid down to the game, who follows the team and watches all the games, can he be seen as equally devoted? Of course, but in a different way. You see, this is where she didn't stick to convention. What do I have? I got this perfume. All right. She's not judging them for not bringing any. nor should you judge the person next to you for her or his expression of devotion. That may look like a waste. You get word of somebody leaving a lucrative job to go into the ministry. You say, that's a waste. You spent all of your life building your business. But you responded to the voice of the Lord that you know has been nagging on you for years. Or having a secure and settled future with your kids and your grandkids nearby. And then you say, I sense the voice of the Lord calling me to take the gospel to a people of another land. And you say, that's a waste. What? Wait, what? It might look like a waste. To you, it might look like a waste, like it doesn't add up, it doesn't calculate, it doesn't look like it's... And it's hard for us because we like to make sense of it all. Because we like to calculate the cost for somebody else. But she's not calculating the cost. Her starting point is, what is he worth, not what is this worth. Many years ago, there was a fellow who was coming to our church. He worked as a coffee roaster. As a matter of fact, he owned the coffee roasting business. He still does. He would come from work in his overalls to Bible study. He smelled like one big giant walking coffee bean. Oh. Do you know, like when you get bags of coffee and they got that little air hole thing, you think you can get a whiff of the aroma of that coffee? He smelled like that every time he walked through the door. Everybody wanted to sit next to him who loved coffee. I imagine him stopping at Walmart before he comes to church after work. And wherever he goes in Walmart, he's bringing the fragrance of coffee. Maybe he stops off at the gas station, fills up his tank. He's bringing the fragrance of coffee to the gas station. Maybe he stops at Chick-fil-A for a number one, and he brings the aroma of coffee into Chick-fil-A. And he comes to church and brings the aroma of coffee with him. That wherever he goes, he's bringing this aroma with him. And I've asked myself the question, is there anything in me that anybody could identify that there's a fragrance of extravagance? Not because he's doing it because that's his job, and he's doing it because that's what he gets paid to do. And he's doing it because that's what we expect him to do. But when nobody's watching, and nobody's evaluating, and no pats on the back, that Jesus gets in his nostrils a fragrance of extravagance, of my devotion. That I had to get somewhere, but I took the time to be with him. That I was having a bad day, but I took the time to give that over to him. That I forgave someone in his name. That everybody else said, you don't need to forgive them. It's a waste. But in your in your desire for extravagant devotion, you do something that cost you. that everybody else may construe as a waste. But you did it for him. And what I love about this is that it may never get registered on earth, but it gets remembered in heaven. It may never get registered on earth, but it gets registered in heaven. And that's what serving and living for an audience of one is all about. For to me, to live is what? Christ. Can you say that? I live for an audience of one. May God stretch us and help us to identify one area that looks like we are spreading a fragrance of extravagance, extravagant devotion to Jesus, something that looks wasteful, but I'm doing it for him and as unto him and for his glory. Dear Lord, thank you for this moment and this amazing example of this woman, Mary of Bethany, and how she poured out the most valuable thing in her life, never to retrieve it again. But you remembered it, and we do now recognize it because Jesus made it so. Even in that statement, it's a statement of hope, a statement of assurance, a statement of victory. Because if Jesus had never rose from the grave, there would be no stories, no victories, none. There would be no time into perpetuity that this woman's story would be told. We couldn't have cared less. But in that Jesus is alive, that he conquered the grave, her story of leading up to that moment is now memorialized. So that when all of us are gone, and we will be soon enough, sure enough, our children will pick up the story, our children's children, and even when our children's generation has come and gone, and for as long as time remains, the story of this woman will be told. May we be a fragrance of extravagance in this world that needs Jesus. If there's anyone here today who doesn't know the Lord, they can't even imagine what it would be like to give their very best, to surrender their very best to Jesus, their future, their family, their finances. May they see that Jesus is worth all of that and more. And they will never be on the losing end. They will never be on the losing end. For this lady received what she could never have imagined, the greatest commendation from her Savior. If there's anyone here today who does not know the Lord, may they be drawn to Jesus this day through your word. Thank you for these moments. We want to be like Mary of Bethany and be so pleasing in your sight. In Jesus' name, amen.